Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everybody? Let's get it fired up. Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, basking in the glory of back-to-back championships for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and getting ready to get back after it tonight for the Winnipeg Jets down at Canada Life Centre hosting the Buffalo Sabres. Welcome to the program. Andrew Paterson with you, along with Michael Remis. Lots of Bomber talk today, as well as Jets and NHL news and notes. Lots going on, unfortunately, in the National Hockey League when it comes to the damn virus wreaking havoc on locker rooms throughout the league. We'll get into what this means for potential Olympic participation, and unfortunately, it doesn't look good, certainly as opposed to where we were, in the last few months. And the Bombers continue to have the time of their lives celebrating this Grey Cup championship, leading into tomorrow's big party down at IG Field beginning at 6 p.m. Ted Wyman's going to join us. He is back from Hamilton. We'll recap Grey Cup week and the big game with Ted. Look ahead to tomorrow and into the CFL offseason as well. And then we'll get ready for Jets and Sabres. Been a minute since we've had our friend Tim Campbell from NHL.com on. Tim's going to join us. And if we are lucky, we might hook up with Dave Pagnotta later on. We're going to reach out to him to talk about how he's hearing from around the league when it comes to all of these individuals hitting up on, ending up on these COVID lists. We'll also hear from Coach Paul Maurice as well, teeing up tonight's game with the Buffalo Sabres. A big shout out to all of our sponsors that make this show happen every day. We couldn't do it without you. Please support them if you have the opportunity, including F Apparel, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club, and of course our betting partner at Coolbet Canada. 13 games in the NHL tonight. No shortage of games to wager on if you enjoy that. And I will give a quick plug. Dustin Nielsen and I just finished a new edition of The Lock Shop. So if you're listening on the podcast, wherever you're getting Winnipeg Sports Talk, just throw in The Lock Shop and give a subscription to that. We'll kind of do a regular hockey focus pod on Tuesdays. And then, of course, another big episode coming up on Friday as we get ready for the weekend in the National Football League. So we've got to talk Bombers. We've got to talk about the Jets getting back on the ice, the latest on Blake Wheeler. And Remis, I think we need to start this off with a civic emergency right now. One of the Grey Cup heroes, Willie Jefferson, who seemed to have a great time last night, popping in, seeing my guy DJ Finesse down at the PAL, little Grey Cup edition of Booty Shake Monday happening. But there is an emergency right now. We've just seen the tweet in the last hour. Willie Jefferson has lost his phone and is asking the citizens of Winnipeg to help him out and get it back to him. He, as everyone does, needs his damn phone.
Yeah, the Bombers responding on Twitter, somebody had a good night, and it seems like the party hasn't stopped. I saw videos of them singing We Are the Champions on the plane, singing Backstreet Boys on the plane, but if you've been around the Onyx apartment, maybe it's just in his couch cushion or something and he can't find it. That's usually where my phone is. I've spent, a lot of time looking for it. It's it's on my bed and it was camouflaged.
I have a feeling that Willie was enjoying the city more than just sitting on his couch. In fact, if he didn't leave and it was just somewhere around, if Kelly B was having some fun with it and hid daddy's phone, I'm sure it would be identified by now. This is an emergency. The phone is gone. Willie needs it back. And tell you what, of all the people's phones you could find, Willie Jefferson's got to be at the top of the list. I mean, maybe would give you a little Grey Cup swag, would certainly give you a nice autograph, maybe a cool pictures, maybe give you a free cameo or something like that, Remo. Bottom line is, the people of Winnipeg need Willie to get his phone back so he can keep firing out all the great stuff that he's done on his Instagram and his Twitter all through Grey Cup week and certainly through the celebratory activities such as last night around the streets of Winnipeg.
Yeah, I don't know what they were up to, but I mean, it was in an apartment complex, so I just assumed it was an apartment. He fell out of his pocket during a party or something. So hopefully it's there. This is my first thought as well. I hope he had his phone backed up to iCloud or something, because you can just get a new one and it gives you all your pictures and everything. Or if he's got Amazon Photos, it automatically backs up all your photos. I'm sure he's got some great memories on there.
Oh, yeah.
From the celebrations. You do not want to lose those. It said it was sent from an iPhone, so I don't know if Willie logged into a different phone. Maybe he's got multiple phones. He logged into a different one and tweeted this, or he was one of the few of us who could actually remember their password, because they got so damn many of them and make you put all these stupid extra letters. And I can't remember any of mine anymore. It takes me like 3 or 4 different tries every time. So we want this update. So maybe at tomorrow's celebration, we'll get the update on Willie's thing.
And if you out there in WST land have any idea as to the whereabouts of the phone belonging to one Willie Jefferson, you let us know, you let him know, let the Bombers know, and let's solve this mystery and put this one to bed. Hey, shout out to everyone that's with us in chat. Man, it's been a great week plus of so much excitement and so many new folks coming in. Just wanted to talk about Bombers if maybe they weren't aware of what we were doing beforehand. If you're here, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button. It always helps us spread the channel. And for the few of you that haven't already subscribed, all you got to do is hit that red subscribe button and make sure you're joining us on a daily basis here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I want to give a special shout out to Mitch, our pal, the Godfather himself. Mitch of Winnipeg Hockey Talk is here. He just said, "You've heard of Eraserhead. I'm now officially known as Staplehead." Jokes aside, because Mitch seems to be in pretty good spirits about this, I'll sending you the best, my friend. Mitch had a bit of a spill on the weekend, and yes, did get 8 staples in the dome. So the resilient Mitch back with us today, and with the rest of the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew in the chat. But listen, in all seriousness, get well, buddy. Hope you're feeling okay, and hope you enjoy the game tonight. So Remis, we're going to get to the Bombers with Ted Wyman. If we have any breaking news on Bomber-related activities, celebrations, or found cell phones, we will let people know. But man, it's going to be an interesting look for the Winnipeg Jets going in tonight. The COVID story is such a huge part of hockey right now. We learned yesterday that was the reason why the Winnipeg Jets did not make a call-up from the Manitoba Moose out of caution, because there was a positive test within the Moose over the last few days. But that means that the Jets have 11 healthy forwards for this game tonight. Nate Beaulieu's going to get into the lineup. He was skating on the 4th line in practice yesterday and, ostensibly moves into that. I'm not sure how much they'll use Beaulieu up front as a forward. Brings me back to memories of my guy, Adam Party, who, of course, did get a few runs up in the forward group at a certain point during his time here in Winnipeg. And maybe it's an opportunity for Maurice to tap guys like Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers on the shoulder for a few extra shifts. Bottom line is Blake Wheeler's going to be out for a number of weeks, although the good news coming out of the coach's presser today, which we'll hear later on, is that it will not need surgery. They'll have a better idea when the swelling goes down. I imagine Blake Wheeler's going to be out through the holiday season, but there certainly was concern that this could be, worst case scenario, requiring surgery and months of rehab. At least right now, I think that's a positive, and it certainly gives some other individuals opportunities to step up and see what they can do in his absence.
Yeah, I'm curious if Beaulieu did skate on forward a couple times, previously. I forget what game that was. I remember thinking it was not an optimal decision, but I think a lot of teams are going with less. I see Carolina also going with 11 forward 70 because of their COVID situation. The Jets are directly dealing with the COVID situations with the Moose, so they don't want to call anyone up right now. So you probably would prefer to have forward, but this is what you got. Thankfully, your opponent tonight is the Buffalo Sabres, who had a bit of a hot start before, but we know they're not one of the NHL's powerhouse teams. So I don't think we're gonna have deja vu against what we saw with the Jets against the Coyotes a couple Mondays ago. I think the Jets are rested. They are missing their captain Blake Wheeler, who had a very strong game before getting hurt in Vancouver. But I think this should be. I want to say this should be a W. Oh, we see Willie Jefferson's iPhone in the chat. I hear people are looking for me. So Sorry, I started to get derailed.
Willie Jefferson's iPhone has entered the chat.
That's pretty good.
I heard people are looking for me. Well,
there it is.
Well
we got
done.
here I'll go with the line. We got Connor, Shafley, Kopp moving up, Stasny, Dubois, Ehlers, and Stasny and Dubois did not take the morning skate, but they're fine. They're good to go. Harkins, Lowry, Vesalainen, and then Toninato, Svechnikov. I put Bolly was skating there. We'll see if he gets any shifts on forward. I mean, he can block shots. He's physical. I mean, sure, throw him in a grinder role, but the defense back, Neil Pionk, he's returned. Morrissey, Schmidt, Dylan Pionk, Stanley Dubois. So the defense, pretty intact. To be fair, I mean, the Jets really haven't had any serious injuries. I mean, they had Sheffield and Wheeler out to start the season with the COVID protocols, but now I think this is the first major one. Blake Wheeler out for extended period of time. Connor's been in every game. Kopp, Ehlers. I mean, they haven't had anything too serious. I mean, the defense, other than Pionk's concussion, been pretty good. So I think they're in a good spot here tonight against Buffalo.
Yeah, this is an important game for the Jets to get 2 points. I'll say that. I think they probably liked the way that they played on Friday against the Canucks, but left a point on the table after regulation. But they did get 3 out of 4 in Seattle and Vancouver. Certainly, I think you'll live with that. But then with 3 days off or 2 days off and 1 day of practice and a game against Buffalo, and then another 2 days off before the Washington Capitals come to town, and then a big game in the division with St. Louis on Sunday afternoon. When you look at this sort of reminds me of the Arizona game a couple weeks ago, Reem, where the team had some tough teams coming in. But you got to take advantage of one of the weaker sisters in the league popping into your building. And they didn't do a great job of that, despite what the shot clock said against Arizona. And you'd hope that maybe that is a bit of a lesson. But I will say this, just how the team responds to the loss of Blake Wheeler. Certainly, I know people are pointing out the team's record without Wheeler this year, which I believe is 8-2-1, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they certainly have had some success with it, but for guys that were hoping they got an opportunity to maybe play a little bit more, you're going to see Andrew Kopp move up in the lineup. You're going to see Paul Stastny move up in the lineup. But really we'll see Scheifele and Connor driving that first line, although I think Kopp's a very, very good, accompaniment to that group. And we're going to get a chance to see a little bit more Pierre-Luc Dubois and Nikolai Ehlers, who at times didn't really seem to click last year, but for my money so far, they have looked very, very good together, especially in the last week or so since they've been put together.
Yeah, and as far as the, different look at the power play now without Blake Wheeler, and I agree. I mean, you say the records go to Blake Wheeler. I mean, this is a guy who played big minutes. He was definitely producing, and I think when you lose that in the lineup, I think it's definitely sucks. But I mean, they're going to deal with it going forward. We were, pleased to hear today that it doesn't require surgery. They're going to wait for the swelling to go down and have a better timeline on the injury. So we'll wait a couple days for that. But I mean, Connor, Pionk, Scheifele, I guess Connor I think it sounds like he's still going to be on the left side, and they're just going to be, and Scheifele goes where Wheeler was. Kopp in the slot, Dubois down low, and then Ehlers, Schmidt, Morrissey, Stasny in the slot, Lowry down. Thank you to Ken Weeb for marking that one down for us yesterday. But different look for the Jets, but I think it's pretty clear that this is Kyle Connor's team right now, and I mean he's on a tear. He's scoring goals, and I think they'll be able to manage without the captain for a bit here.
Yeah, well, I still maintain it's Connor Hellebuck's team, but the Connor and Connor show is in full effect on Friday night in Vancouver, and both of those players will be back in. Connor Hellebuck in the starting net tonight, or I should say, I guess Connor was the Seattle game because, of course, Eric Comrie was in the game in Vancouver. And let that one in the second period that I probably did not like. But I thought Comrie actually bounced back quite well in the third period. And hey, you know what? Bottom line is Connor Hellebuck, Jets going up against the Buffalo Sabres, good opportunity. And Buffalo, for that matter, Reem, is a team that, they started off actually really quite well. Then they win their first 3 games, and everyone was thinking that, not everyone was thinking, but people around Buffalo going, we thought these guys were going to lose every game of this year. Well, I can tell you that things have kind of returned to what they thought. The Sabres have lost their last 7 and 11 of their last 12. So it has been ugly for Buffalo as of late. But that being said, Think of what happened when Arizona came in here a little while ago. You're certainly going to need to step up. You're going to need to play your best and, be better than they were that night. But certainly things have come around. Kyle Connor's on fire right now, playing with Mark Scheifele. They'll be doing it with without the captain tonight. But Neil Pionk does return on the blue line, which is a nice touch. We'll talk about the Jets specifically with Tim Campbell a little later on. We'll also hear from head coach Paul Maurice, but we're going to get to a little more Bomber Grey Cup aftermath in just a moment with our pal Ted Wyman. I want to thank F Apparel for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And of course, F's been everywhere. I mean, if you saw the CFL Player Awards, Willie J wearing his custom F Apparel suit with the X-Men on the inside, I have a feeling there are going to be some pretty cool back-to-back suits made over at F Apparel. Bottom line is every guy needs at least one suit that fits and looks great. And F's custom-made suits start at just $400. It's locally and Winnipeg-owned with a full line of custom clothing for any occasion, not just suits, but dress shirts, winter jackets, casual chinos, golf pants, untucked dress shirts, and much more. Right now, if you figured that might be a great gift card, you might want to mention that gift cards right now, if you buy them online at fapparel.com, are 15% off. So you'll be able to get a $200 gift card for $170. And if you're having a wedding party coming up next year, your wedding party gets 15% off when the group buys the suits from F Apparel. 190 Smith downtown, or check them out. That's EPHFapparel.com. Our friends at Vita Health are ready for the holidays. You know about Vita Health. You've probably grown up with Vita Health, knowing the great local company, been in business since 1936. But Vita Health, not only a great local company, but they've got a lot of great local gift ideas. Or if you don't want to get someone, consider the gift of health and a Vita Health gift card. They've got all the organic, plant-based, gluten-free, and natural holiday fixings too. Stuffing, cranberry sauce, baking supplies. This was interesting. Peppermint-flavored marshmallows. Yum. Eggnog, chocolate, and more. And of course, they are stocked with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural grocery supplements and beauty products too. Order your fresh, local, free-roaming turkey from Vita Health. $3.86 a pound. Order in store. Deadline is December 19th. 7 Winnipeg locations in the PEG, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. Find out more at myvita.com. And our friends at Culligan are ready for the holidays. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems. Might be a great gift for the family that'll have some legs throughout the year. But of course, the water softeners also help you get those sparkling clean sinks and tubs and dishes that even your mother-in-law will be cool with. And of course, they've got the December promo, the gift of Culligan water, $9.99 per month for the first 3 months, or you can give the gift of Culligan water for just $9.99. Find out more. Give them a call at 694-5180. Pop down and see them at 1200 Sargent Avenue, or get them online at drinkculligan.com. All right, drip alert. Ted Wyman is back on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And I would imagine that Ted, like many of the people that took in the Grey Cup from the non-media contingent, got a lot of rest last night, because Grey Cup, it doesn't matter what role you're in, it is a grind, and especially for those covering the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Ted, welcome back to the PEG. First and foremost, how are you feeling, and how was the week for you?
Well, I had to break out the hat again, Huss, because, it's a pretty momentous occasion. Back-to-back Grey Cups for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Never happened before in my lifetime. And then there's an awful lot of people who are like me.
Oh, you know what? Hold on a sec, Ted. I think we've got maybe some sort of a Hustler's hat is crooked. Is my hat crooked? Jeez. Okay, Remis is freaking out. They thought maybe everyone can hear Ted. Excellent. All right, so Ted, overall, before we get into the game and the championship, but I do appreciate you recognizing the importance of your visit today after the back-to-back by putting on this famous hat that people love in the chat so much. What did you make of the week? How different was it from a normal Grey Cup, if you will, because of COVID, the smaller size, some of the venue, some of the events not happening this year? Because I'll tell you what, once we saw the game, I'm not sure we'll ever see a Grey Cup game that fan-wise was so heavily dominated by, the home team, in this case, the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Honestly, I have to say it wasn't that different for me. I covered the Grey Cup in 2019 when it was the Bombers and the Ticats, and it really wasn't much difference in terms of the media procedures and whatnot. We did have to get tested for COVID-19 every day, which was a different wrinkle into it, but we were all pretty happy to do it because between vaccinations and those tests, we felt pretty comfortable that we could interact with the people that we had to deal with and with one another. And that was a good part of it. And, there was a smaller party. There were fewer venues. There was, I think less representation from around the country because obviously, as you said, it was a Hamilton Grey Cup with a smaller crowd, only 26,000, and most of them were Tiger Cats fans. But it still felt good. It felt like a Grey Cup. It's a great town for football. Hamilton cares about the CFL, and you could feel it from the minute you got there. All the servers were wearing Grey Cup shirts or hats, or there were banners up that were recognizing the Grey Cup. The Uber drivers knew what was going on. It was not like it was lost on people that something big was happening, and you could feel that all around the stadium. So I thought the CFL did a great job of pulling it off. I thought Hamilton did a great job of pulling it off, and I'm happy to have been part of that experience.
I really feel for the people of Hamilton right now. And we sort of talked about this yesterday because speaking, from a Bomber fan perspective, that was us for the better part of the last 3 decades until 2019. Some really good seasons, some good years, some disappointments, but always just falling short. And I got to tell you, Ted, the one moment that it was a bit of an eye opener for me was the introduction of the Ticats at the Grey Cup in that game. And you saw the crowd. I mean, Kate Burness had said earlier on the pregame that, a lot of the people were thinking it would maybe be sort of 75-25. And then you looked out. She said, I'm going to say conservatively, 95% of this crowd is in black. They were ready to go. They were loud. They cranked up Welcome to the Jungle, and the Ticats came out. And I mean, that was a moment. And it was at that moment I thought, maybe we've underestimated what this atmosphere will be like, for a team like the Bombers coming in and playing a legit road game, probably, a more imposing environment than they've been at in any time this year. I mean, maybe you could say the Labor Day Classic would be right up there, but I mean, it was full, it was packed, and everybody was going for the home team. All that being said, though, I think we've learned about this Bomber team that I think what was achieved finally in 2019 really did rub off on this team this year. And really from the start of the season, they played like champions. They played with a championship pedigree. And even when things got tough, they believed in themselves and knew that they would be able to pull it out and did it.
Yeah, it was a big advantage to the Tiger Cats. I always thought it would be. I thought that was going to be a close game. I don't know that in perfect conditions and in a neutral site that it would have been as close, but you never know because the Tiger Cats played great football in that game. And I do also feel sorry for the people of Hamilton who did such a great job of making that experience good in the city of Hamilton for the Grey Cup and who embraced it so much. And of course, it was just a heartbreaker for them. And, we can get into some of the reasons why on the field. I do think there were some mistakes made by the Tiger Cats that really hurt them and let the Blue Bombers off the hook and let the Blue Bombers, have another chance to come out and win. But nobody can take away what Hamilton did in terms of putting on a show in incredibly difficult circumstances after a canceled season to make it feel like some normalcy for the people who really care about the CFL. And to me, that was a win in itself. And, I was proud obviously I'm a reporter of the CFL, but I'm also a supporter of the CFL. And I was really happy to see how all that went. And, there was at the end of the game, I got a chance to go on the field, and that's a really great experience. You get to go out there, you talk to the players just after they've had their turn with the cup, and you get them at their most emotional, which is really exciting. And then you go and you look around, and there was a group of Bombers fans in one corner of the stadium. It's just like it was in Calgary last year. It was a lot less people, however. And I mean, I'm thinking we're talking a few hundred. I can't imagine there were more than a few hundred Blue Bombers fans in those stands. And, they made a lot of noise at the end, but for sure it was a dominant Hamilton crowd.
And the fans were into it. I had a bunch of friends that were at the game, and a couple of them were in Toronto for the weekend and just went in on Sunday. And my pal Jake Kilgore tweeted out that, we've been in Hamilton for 15 minutes walking around in bomber gear, and I've never been flipped off so many times in 15 minutes as I had. Grey Cup is on, let's go. And it was atmosphere. What was it like, just before we get to the game, and we'll kind of focus in on the Bombers here in a minute? I know you were working after the game, you had to file your reports and do all that, but once you got out and were around people and the next day, what was it like in Hamilton? I mean, did you really feel like that hangover, not just of a party, but a hangover of an absolutely heartbreaking loss? Like, it couldn't have been any closer for that team.
Yeah, so I didn't get a great opportunity to get a sense of that, Huss, because, we're working pretty late, and then you're leaving a stadium where everybody's left 2 hours earlier, or maybe
it's gone.
2.5. So you're not really getting that feel. But I can say that, when you want, I didn't really see the end of the game that well because of everything's going on. So obviously I come home and I've watched it again a couple of times on TV just to make sure I recognize every nuance of what happened. And the looks on the faces of the Hamilton fans when Kyrie Wilson intercepted the ball in overtime really said it all. I mean, that was crushing disappointment, and it was really too bad. But I do think that they would have taken the words to heart from people like Orlando Steinauer and Mike O'Shea and all the others who recognized, the people on TSN as well, recognized that Hamilton put on a great Grey Cup, and that the Hamilton Tiger Cats represented themselves extremely well as underdogs in that game and had a very good chance to win. And I do think there was a lot of pride there, and rightfully so.
Well, Ted, let's talk a little bit more about the game, because it was one of the more unique Grey Cup games that I can ever remember. And I guess the weather, but specifically the wind, was such a massive part of that. Many people yesterday in the chat said the biggest play Adam Bighill made all game, and it wasn't that he didn't make any big ones in the game, but the biggest one was calling the coin toss right and being able to defer to the second half, and then having Mike O'Shea defer again and take the wind in the fourth quarter, which certainly was impactful. But let's go back to the first quarter. What did you think of the Bombers? They drove the football, but they didn't seem, a lot of people were talking about the running game didn't really get going. I mean, from my perspective, they were doing a pretty good job. They'd get 3, 4, 5 downs on a Harris carry on first down. What wasn't connecting was the passing game and the ability to keep on moving the chains. And I think we saw right out of the gate that Sergio Castillo was ready to play and was on, and they got a couple of those. But I had to think that turning it into the second quarter when the wind was going the other way, and we would see how advantageous that was for Hamilton, that the Bombers' kind of pedestrian start offensively maybe left some points on the board and didn't take advantage of a great start of the Bomber defense right out of the gate.
Well, look at it this way. The Bombers scored 23 points after the end of the third quarter, all with the wind. They scored 4 with the wind in the first quarter. They squandered their opportunity, in my opinion. And Mike O'Shea, I've listened to his coach's show and listened to things that he said. He said if he had one regret, it would be not trying a field goal with Sergio Castillo on their first opportunity, which would have been a 54-yarder. But I mean, that guy was going to make from pretty good distances with the wind, it seemed. Instead, they kicked it away with Mark Leggio. I think it went out of bounds around the 18. It wasn't anything spectacular in terms of pinning them. And, it was just one of those opportunities. Let's put it this way. Hamilton's kicking game, particularly the punting game, was terrible into the wind. But interestingly, Joel Whitford's 2 best punts were his first 2 against the wind in the first quarter. And that actually helped a lot because it kept the Bombers a little bit at bay. And Janarian Grant fumbled the return of one of them. So, again, it was feeling a little bit like the West Final, I thought, especially early on, that maybe the Bombers were just letting the other guys hang around, maybe more than they should be, and obviously turning a ball over there. And then once they got into third quarter, Zach Collaros with 2 picks that could have been extremely damaging. Only one of them really was. And it's just interesting that that team was so good at starting on time and making the plays when they needed to, taking care of the football, doing all the little things right all season long. And in the postseason, they weren't very good at that at all. And, it's really interesting that they were, it just says so much about that team that they're able to overcome those kinds of things.
No doubt about it. Ted Wyman of the Winnipeg Sun recapping the Bombers' back-to-back Grey Cup win in Grey Cup 108 on Sunday in Hamilton, Ontario. But what did you think about their situation at halftime? I put out a tweet to Bomber fans. I said, well, folks, I mean, it's 10-7. They're down by 3. This is the exact same thing that happened last week, but it definitely feels different. Honestly, talking to people at halftime back at the West Final was like, good Lord, turn the football over 5 times and down 3 points. I mean, it's right there for the team. This was a little different. I guess from my perspective, the biggest part of it, maybe the biggest surprise, was how well Hamilton played, especially their defensive front on the running game and getting to Zach Collaros. And then, moving Masoli in was the huge wild card in that St. Evans didn't have a lot going on, but I think we all knew that both of those quarterbacks were deadly. Masoli had played a lot in the past, had lost his job. I mean, we always hear about these Cinderella stories in championship games, and it seemed like we were maybe on the verge of one of those happening.
The Bombers were getting pushed around, Huss. There's just no two ways about it. It was happening all over the field. The Hamilton Tiger Cats were physically dominating the game up to halftime, and that's why it felt different from the Saskatchewan game, because in the Saskatchewan game, the Bombers were down in scoring position all day long, but they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. That's not getting pushed around. That's hurting yourself. And in this case, I don't want to take too much away from the Rough Riders, because they did make some plays, but we all know that the Bombers look at themselves as being the ones that kind of blew that situation. But here it was just different. We expected that Hamilton had the best run defense in the CFL during the regular season, but we expected them to have their most difficult time of the year against Winnipeg's all-star laden offensive line and bruising running back Andrew Harris. And the truth is, Andrew Harris was getting nowhere for that first half. I think he only had 32 yards. He was getting 2 or 3 on each carry. And we're used to, his Grey Cup history was maybe 7 yards a carry coming into that. We were expecting Andrew Harris to run wild, especially with Ted Laurent out of the lineup for the Hamilton Tiger Cats and a rookie in there. But no go. The Tiger Cats were right there. And when they got those 2 picks from Cameron Kelly in the third quarter, I'm not going to lie. I know the Bombers say there were no doubters on their sideline, but when you're sitting up in the press box and you're watching that, you're thinking, this is not going Winnipeg's way. And there's a pretty darn good chance they're going to lose this game.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's get to the third quarter, because I think and I'll say this. I love the way the Bombers came out. I thought the defense was ready to go. I thought they actually moved the football against the wind and took up some time, which I thought would be crucial. The one thing that I don't think anyone could have seen were those 2 picks by Zach Collaros. And we'll talk about the bounce back from him in the fourth quarter and overtime in a minute that ended up winning him the most outstanding player. But you're exactly right, Ted. I mean, we'd want to talk about the turnovers in the game against Saskatchewan. I mean, for the most part, that was ball security. I mean, it was the weird tip drill from Dembski that never happens. I mean, it was a lot different when you're starting quarterback who's in the middle of a dogfight against a team that's playing its ass off and is matching the physicality on the offensive line, throws those 2 interceptions. One was bad, but the second one, I think, was the real jolt to anyone that was wearing blue and gold, whether they were in Hamilton or across the country watching the game.
And Zach Collaros said it was an absolutely unacceptable interception. He just simply does not see the Hamilton player. I'm pretty sure he was throwing for Kenny Lawler, although Rashid Bailey was in the area as well. But it is a mark of Zach Collaros. It is the mark of a veteran quarterback, of a guy who's been through so much in the CFL through his career and still thinks back to his high school coach when he needs to calm himself down and be more cool and collected. And he's able to do that. He's able to come back and get the job done. Just forget about what happened with those interceptions. There's been a lot of great quarterbacks over history who threw a lot of interceptions, NFL players that I can think of. Their mentality was, well, that didn't go well. We'll just go and do it again. And it does seem like Zach Collaros has that mentality. I think the Bombers did have a very strong confidence because they knew when they got the ball with the wind that things were going to go well. And I mean, that's the thing with the Tiger Cats. Even if when they got the ball with the wind, we're talking 2-3 play drives. it could just completely change your confidence because you knew how hard it was going into that wind, and you just make these plays that were so much more wide open, and you just cruise down the field and get it done. So when the Bombers are looking at the 11 minutes left in the game and they're down by 12, they're still thinking, man, it isn't, we know we can move it quickly. And that was a huge difference. But they dug themselves a pretty good hole, and certainly those interceptions that Collaros threw were a big part of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So, we move on. 12 down after Hamilton got that field goal in the and to be honest, maybe one of the biggest plays in the entire game was there inside the 10-yard line of preventing that touchdown from going in, because I can tell you a 16-point lead feels a lot different than a 12-point lead, even with the field flipping the way that was with the Bombers getting the wind. I mean, Hamilton was able to take some time off the clock and put up points on the board. And I think you realize when the Bombers were getting that football back after that possession, Ted, it was now or never for Winnipeg if they were going to run it back.
Absolutely. And, you talked about Big Hill with the coin toss. It's true. He got heads right. So that was a pretty big deal. And the Bombers did have the win for the fourth quarter. But the hit he made on Don Jackson before that field goal that you're talking about, just at the start of the fourth quarter, was just unbelievable. The violence of it was unbelievable. He sent the guy flying. That's at about the 3-yard line. Hamilton was at the 5 or inside the 5 3 times, and they scored 9 points out of that. I mean, that is an incredible job by that Blue Bombers defense to come up so big in those moments.
Well, in that play, and I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same play. I mean, Big Hill was the guy that sort of leveled the hit, but I'm not sure that play happens if Winston Rose isn't closing and getting in on it well, because just of the positioning and the angle, I think he would have been able to almost bounce off and, almost have this momentum almost carrying him that. And Rose, I mean, there was a few pass plays that got connected on him, but the crazy thing about Rose is, and he's such a tiny player when you compare him to the rest of the guys out there, Ted, there was that play. And I mean, he was the guy that got the penetration off the corner on the third down stop that the Bombers got, I believe, in the second half, which was another big play that flipped field position at an important time in the game.
Yeah, it was a solo tackle on a big, strong running quarterback. I mean, and as you said, Winston Rose looks like, when he hits you with his size, you'd think it would be a mosquito hitting you or something like that. But he's not. He's still very, very strong. He looks slight, but he's very strong. The guy got a pretty good look in the NFL, and there's a reason why. But that's a great solo tackle that he made. Now, unfortunately, it was literally the next series where Collaros threw his first interception. So it didn't have the effect that it might have, but it's still a very memorable play. And obviously, if he was in on that play, I don't remember who the corner coming up was when Big Hill made that hit. It may have been Rose. You're right. He made that, and he made other big plays. And we're not even talking about the one he made yet that everybody will want to talk about. We'll leave that for later.
Yeah, no doubt. So they get there. Now, Dembski gets the touchdown on that second drive. They go field goal, then they go touchdown. And at that point, it seemed like it was game on. Dembski's role, and this maybe gets to the concept of who the outstanding Canadian is. I think it was a really difficult choice because, there wasn't really anyone that just jumped off the page. I mean, I think you could have made an argument for Andrew Harris with the way that he played, especially in the fourth quarter, getting up to 80 yards on the ground. But it seemed like that touchdown was such an important play for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that one got it. I will say this. I thought Jake Thomas maybe got overlooked because I thought, hey, a huge game on the defensive side of the football, had the sack, and those were as important as any other plays. But the thing about Dembski, Ted, that I got to give Hamilton a ton of credit for, they continue to try to run him wide like he's done with so much success all year. And that just simply was not there all day long.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a point in the show where I was hoping to be able to talk about this a bit, because the voting for the MVP is a difficult situation, especially in a close game. And I did have a vote, and they won it with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Well, at that time, the Tiger Cats were still winning, and they were winning. I think it was maybe before Dembski's touchdown, but it might have been.
It's right around there. That
so
pretty much was 5 minutes.
At that moment, I voted for Jeremiah Mazzoli as the most outstanding player, and I voted for Cameron Kelly with my second vote. You had to do 2 on your ballot, and And then when it got close and the Bombers took the lead, then we were asked to resubmit if the Bombers won, who we thought it was going to be, but it didn't include the overtime. So at that point, I voted for Sergio Castillo as the Blue Bombers MVP, and my outstanding Canadian was Jake Thomas. And I mean, I have no issue with Nick Dembski winning it. I think Nick Dembski is a huge part of this team. He made a fantastic move to score a touchdown that brought them to within 2 points and maybe even 1 because, Sergio Castillo tacks on that great kickoff afterwards that gets them another point. And so I have no issue with Dembski, but I agree with all the people who say Jake Thomas because I thought he was the most dominant Canadian in the game. And just letting some of your viewers know that there's a bit of a challenge there in making that vote. And it's a tough one because you need to be able to get it ready for TSN and for the presentation and all that kind of stuff. But you also need to know what the result of the game is. And in that game, we had no idea until the 5th quarter. So there you go.
Yeah, well, and exactly. And well, let's talk about Castillo for a minute, because I mean, God knows we spent a lot of oxygen over the course of the year talking about the kicking game, and in 25-point and 30-point blowouts. And the concept was that it doesn't matter now, Ted, but it's hard to imagine this team winning a championship without having that kicking game play a very, very important role at some point in the game. And that game was Sunday. And Kyle Walters must have been sitting there after the first few field goals, giving himself the old Barry Horowitz pat on the back because, they went out and identified what they needed to do, brought a guy in that up until Sunday didn't really have a ton of opportunities. It wasn't a big part of the Bombers' story going in, but it absolutely was. And tell you what, I mean, all credit due to Zach Collaros. The quarterback position is so important, and what he did in the 4th quarter in overtime was phenomenal, and it ended up winning him a championship. But we're not having any of this conversation if Sergio Castillo isn't money right from the kickoff of the game to begin the 60 minutes plus. And that you couldn't say that same thing for most of the rest of the Blue Bombers.
Well, it really would have been incredible to me it still is incredible, but it would have been incredible to me for a kicker from the Blue Bombers to be MVP of the Grey Cup after the season they had. I mean, their kicking was an absolute tire fire. It was pretty much as bad as you can imagine it being in the CFL, 57% when Sergio Castillo was brought to town. That's absolutely atrocious number, and they had all kinds of trouble. They were trying, I think Ali Mortada is probably a pretty good kicker. I really do. I just think, and I was talking to Paul Boudreau, the Bombers special teams coordinator, and he said the problem with Ali Mortada is he had never kicked in Canada before, and he just wasn't used to the hash marks being so wide, and he was kicking straight balls, but they were going wide because it's so much farther between the hash marks in Canada than it is in the US. But it still wasn't good enough, right? It just wasn't working. And they had to go out and get Sergio Castillo. It's incredible that somebody of his caliber was available. They were able to get him in here. And, he did seem extremely confident going into that game. And he gave the Bombers exactly what they needed. That's a wind game. And in a wind game, you better have good kicking. And that guy goes 5 for 5. He kicks 2 singles on kickoffs, which wound up being incredibly important. And, I really think it was just part of what this team is all about. It's such a great organization. They're so good at making the right moves right now. It's just the Midas touch. Because realistically, we already talked about Winston Rose, and now we're talking about Sergio Castillo. Those guys joined the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in November, and they were 2 of the best players on the field in the Grey Cup. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and Rose had been with the team before, but Castillo was really a newcomer. I know he'd been here for a cup of coffee before, but, this entire group really hadn't been with. And got to tell you, it was hilarious seeing him coming off the plane yesterday with his shirt off, and he just tweeted out a picture of him wearing a blue and gold luchador mask with the Grey Cup from the dressing room. I guess they're having some fun there today before the official party tomorrow. It really is a great story in a lot of ways, because we know how cruel that job is, and maybe unlike any other position in professional football, you have a couple weeks, you can be great, couple bad weeks, there's another guy that they're bringing in. And we saw that on the other side of things with Winnipeg so far this year. But a week after going 1-4 for the New York Jets in the NFL and being cut and being back to the drawing board with where is he going to play, He comes here and ends up being not just a Grey Cup champion, but really a Grey Cup hero in the city of Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think it was like a year to the day or something from when he got cut by the New York Jets to going 5 for 5 in the Grey Cup. Hey, it's not the NFL, but it's pretty darn good. And he's never won a championship before. So that's a pretty exciting thing. He never even made the playoffs as a pro before. So that's a pretty darn strong performance from a guy who hadn't really been in that position before. And, like you said before, he just gave them what they needed. He gave them a chance. It's great to see him have that opportunity and to do so well. And kudos to the Bombers for making sure they had someone in place that they would feel confident with in such a situation. And Mike O'Shea even talked about how if they had been facing the wind and trying to kick field goals in more situations, that they would have gone with Sergio. They thought he could kick it from 44. They really didn't think that Hamilton's kicker could get anything outside the 30. And I watched both kickers in warm-ups, both in the before the game and at halftime. And some of those kicks, honestly, if they were high in the air, we're talking even from maybe 35, were blowing back towards the goalpost, even if they got through. So I don't even know how you call that one if it goes through and then blows back. But it's really an interesting one.
Ted, let's get to OT. Very impressive drive for the Bombers. It seemed like they realized once they got to OT, they were in the driver's seat. I don't think they minded at all going first. They put it in the end zone. They got the 2 points. And then it was time for the defense to do what the defense did all year long, and that was finish off opponents. And I don't think there could be a more way. I don't think there could be a more appropriate way for this season to end than a walk-off pick touched by not one, not two, but three different players of the Bombers defense before the season was over.
Well, I certainly agree with you on that, but I think we would be remiss to leave out one of the most important plays of the game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and that was
Tim Nichols taking a knee. Oh, the single.
When Sergio Castillo kicked off to him, and I don't care what Mike O'Shea says, and I don't care what Orlando Steinauer says. I have looked as closely as I possibly can, and you can't see a single player inside the 30 wearing the white jersey. So if that guy can't get it out to the 25 or 30 from where he was, that it made no sense at all. They end up getting to the 35, but they give up the point. They would have won the Grey Cup. I mean, obviously things weren't guaranteed to go exactly the same, but they had a great drive. They had a drive that would have been good enough to win the Grey Cup, and they were not able to. And I just want to tell a funny story here, Huss. A lot of the media were taken down to field level to wait to go onto the field before the game ended. So they were down there at around 5 minutes. I personally said, I can't do that. I still got a game. I got to write a story here. And I need to know a result before I can actually write it. So I can't go down to field level yet. But the ones who were down there, while they were being marshaled down there, or whatever the word is you want to use, that's when the kick happened and the kickoff, and when the single was given up. And they said from where they were, they couldn't see the scoreboard. And these were people who, some of them were Winnipeg media, some of them were national media and whatnot. So they thought Hamilton was driving for the winning field goal all along. They literally were watching this happening, thinking that the Bombers are about to lose. I mean, all Hamilton has to do is kick a 10-yarder. And that's how it went. And I mean, honestly, I can't even imagine what that must have been like. All of a sudden they kick the field goal and nobody's cheering or anything like that. It's like, what the heck just happened here? So
you know what? Marshall Ferguson told us the exact same thing yesterday, and that was a real eye opener. Just before we go though, the way the thing ended, three Bombers getting in on it, a perfect way, an appropriate way to end a championship season that was led by the best defense we've seen in a long, long time.
Absolutely. And I asked that question on the field of Adam Bighill. And I said, could it be ever be more fitting? And he said, it absolutely could not be more fitting. It's the way that this team became champions. All season long, they dominated. The defense was fantastic. They outscored opponents like crazy in the fourth quarter. Wow, they did it again, didn't they? That's just what they do. And to be honest, I agree with you. And really, come on, Winston Rose, what an incredibly alert play that was. Oh. Can you even imagine having the presence of mind to see that ball there, to see your teammate coming towards him and to scoop it back to him? I don't think it gets talked about enough. I think that's going to be thought of. I mean, people are calling it a fluky play.
No.
I don't think that's fluky at all. That was seriously talented, and it should be on highlight reels forever.
Yeah, it will be in the city of Winnipeg. Ted, great work all week. Thanks for doing this. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow when they bring everyone together one more time to celebrate the champs.
You betcha, Huss. Thanks very much, buddy.
Great stuff. Awesome copy all week long in the Winnipeg Sun. There is our pal Ted Wyman joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're going to get to the Jets and Buffalo Sabres coming up. Of course, our friends at Manitoba Battery are ready for winter. If you need a battery or you figure that you're going to need a battery, get the best price on a battery in town and shop local over at Manitoba Battery, $89.50 with core exchange inside, or they'll deliver it to you citywide for $104.94 and then a $15 rebate on the core after that. They've also got batteries for all the sleds out there as you're getting ready to hit the trails, usually between $65 and $75. But the bottom line is, if you need a battery for anything, shop local, Manitoba Battery. Donnie and the guys have you covered. Find out more at manitobabattery.com. They're at 1026 Logan, or give them a call and get started at 783-8787. Tomorrow's the big party. And coming soon, under Christmas trees around Winnipeg, will be Winnipeg Blue Bombers championship gear coming up at Royal Sports, your headquarters for all things Winnipeg, whether it be Blue Bomber gear, championship gear, Jets gear, or your favorite team from around the world of sports. Royal Sports is your hookup for it. Of course, they're also the hockey superstore. They've got all the snowboard gear ready. And especially if you've got kids, teenagers, check out what they've got going on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side for some amazing holiday gifts. Bomber championship gear coming up soon, Royal Sports, and you can find them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. And again, a cheers to our friends at Not Auto Corp. Trevor and their guys back from the Grey Cup, back to business, waiting for you down at Waverly and McGillivray if you are looking for a new car. Before you do anything, start your search at Not Auto Corp. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team, Waverly and McGillivray, Not.ca online, of course, the Winnipeg Car Lab as well. Big thanks to Trev for their support of us and, of course, longtime supporters of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. All right, let's get ready for this game tonight. And welcome back our good friend Tim Campbell from NHL.com. Happy holidays, Tim. How are you?
Hi, Huss. Best of the season to you. I'm well.
Hey, before we get into the hockey, what do you think about those Bombers? Hard to believe. After all those years working at the Freep, we had a 29-year Grey Cup drought, and they go back-to-back.
Yeah, there was some drama on Sunday. Let's leave it at that. I'm sure a lot of nerves were frayed, but happy times in Winnipeg.
No doubt about it. Lots going on in the National Hockey League. Hey, before we even get to this game tonight between the Buffalo Sabres and the Winnipeg Jets, working with the NHL.com, you've got colleagues from around the league. Just from a hockey fan's perspective, especially someone that is hoping that we see NHLers at the Olympics. Man, it's been ugly on the COVID-19 list. I mean, just star players around the league, big numbers of some teams. Calgary's not playing for a week. I mean, what do you make of how serious this situation is for the National Hockey League? And I guess looking down the road, what it could mean for Olympic participation?
Yeah, I don't know the final answer to that, Huss. It seems to me everybody wants to know. I can only tell you the feeling today. I'm here at Rogers Place in Edmonton today, and I can tell you the feeling around here is not a great one. We have increasing COVID positives, players going into the protocol, more in Calgary today, Carolina, Boston, now some in Vancouver, we're told, and Ryan McLeod's now been added to the COVID list here in Edmonton. I don't think this is quite feeling like that day in March 2020, but it's starting to take on a bit of that air where there's a bit of worry and, you just don't know what's going to happen. Connor McDavid was in the interview room here this morning, full of non-answers, kind of purring, wants to get more information about, possible Olympic participation, wants to go, but understands now there are some serious issues troubling the league. So as far as COVID and other restrictions maybe in China. So I don't know. It's unsettling is the right word, I think, today. Of course, everyone wants to see a best on best hockey tournament, myself included, but the practicality of that seems to be shrinking more towards a 50-50 scenario here now than, some weeks ago. And I don't know, myself, I grow more concerned every day that this is in jeopardy. I don't know how this is going to turn out. Maybe some extra diligence and, more vaccinations will get this thing turned around, and through the Christmas holidays, we'll feel like in a safer and a better place to have an Olympics. Let's cross our fingers for that.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm pretty much right there with you. Definitely hopeful, but when you see what's happening almost by the hour right now, it's certainly taken its toll on the hope and the optimism that we'll finally see a great best on best tournament. Jets back in action tonight. They got 3 of 4 in Seattle and Vancouver, coming out of a disappointing game last week against the Carolina Hurricanes. What do you make of the Jets going into this week? Home games against Buffalo, Washington, and St. Louis, Tim. They had a great start. They had a really rough couple of weeks where they sort of forgot how to score goals. They seem to get back at it. A lot of those players that were quiet were resuming, but now they're doing it without Blake Wheeler, who, unfortunately was authoring his best game of the season on Friday against Vancouver, scored his first goal, could have had probably a hat trick in the first period. The line was on fire, led by Kyle Connor. And now, they're back at it without their captain in the lineup, for 3 very important home games.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The Blake Wheeler situation is very unfortunate. He's been such a soldier consistently through the seasons here, and now the past 2 seasons he's run into some issues with health and injury. So I think they had a bit of an audition on this storyline earlier. They'll maybe figure out a way to get through this period until he can come back. What I think, one of the things I was watching last week and will be watching keenly this week is to see if the team will sort of continue to get its urgency level up. I don't know if I think I detected that waning a little bit when the goal scoring was difficult and there were some troubling losses. That loss to Arizona didn't sit very well with a lot of folks, including me. I mean, when you have that much opportunity and that much offense and you can't find a way to put in any goals at all, to me, it speaks a bit to urgency and bearing down. So I certainly detected a rise in that just watching the games from television in Vancouver and Seattle. Certainly more of what's expected out of the Jets and, I think what they're capable of. So there's something I would like to really see that urgency continue and maybe even continue to go up this week with the home games. And I mean, that's the road to the playoffs, into a good position in the Central Division. Because if you start kind of just going along, not casually, I know Paul Maurice likes to use the word casual a lot. I wouldn't describe the Jets as casual, even when they were having their troubles scoring. But, it's a hard league to score and it's a hard league to win in. If you don't have some of that urgency every night, I don't think you're going to generally like your results. So hoping that they can, find a way to build off that, because I liked quite a lot of that urgency I saw last week.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it was led by Connor Hellebuck in net, which is sort of a strange thing to say for a guy that hasn't been out. But I mean, he really does. I think he is sort of the pulse of this team. Some of the things that he said a couple of times so far this season, after the Minnesota game, going into Calgary that we talked about before, as well as into that game against the Kraken, which many people, myself included, thought maybe they'd go with Comrie, give him an extra day of rest and play against Vancouver. But it was the Connor and Connor show. We've talked a lot about Connor Hellebuck in the past. I'm interested in your thoughts on just how much Kyle Connor has raised his level of play, Tim. He's right up there with the top goal scorers in the league. And for a guy that was at times, I don't want to say thought of as a passenger, but as a beneficiary of playing with Scheifele and Wheeler, I don't think there's any doubt that he has been the guy that's been driving whatever line he's been on. And man, he's turning into a real NHL superstar.
Yeah, I would agree with that, that he has turned into a driver for sure. I'm not sure if you had folks telling you that their opinion is he's been a passenger at some point in his career with the Jets, because I haven't seen that. He's not a physical energy kind of player in that respect. But apart from maybe his debut with the Jets, and there was a bit of an unsettled time in the beginning where he actually went to the Moose for a short bit. If you think Kyle Connor's been a passenger, I don't think you're paying attention very well. So I can tell you this, seeing and talking to different folks around the league, different general managers and hockey people, certainly have taken notice. Kyle Connor is among the elite goal scorers and offensive players in this league and all round players. And I think, there's been urgency in his game. I've gotten the sense of that from the exhibition games on this year. There's another level here that we're being treated to. I think some of it is he just really wants to be in the Olympics. He also wants to be known as an elite player and someone who can be counted on. I really think it's a credit to him after being, a pretty significant hero in the series against Edmonton last season, that he's chosen to build off it instead of resting his laurels on it. So, the plays at high speed, the ability to put the puck in the net, the ability to read the game and see the game and make the plays. It's kind of that elite player sense where what's happening, a move or two or three down the road here, and you can make the right play. Where to go? I mean, that goal in Seattle last week when Scheifele he gave the puck off to Scheifele, and then he kind of sneakily was in the crowd and then just backed out of it and made himself open and available for a one-timer. I mean, that's a clever, impressive, skilled, highly skilled play that not a lot of players can make. So I'm as a fan watching the games, I'm thrilled to be watching this sort of new level of Kyle Connor. And the good part is, to me, he's still a young player, and there's probably lots more to come, and maybe a few more levels to come.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I love your choice of the words urgency, because he has been playing with it. And I think this even goes back to when he was playing with Dubois earlier this year. Dubois was doing such a good job of going to the net. And I think Connor realized early that if I want to make the most of playing with this guy, I'm going to need to be getting into those areas as well. And hey, they did a lot of those beautiful, your one-timers, your plays kind of outside of the blue paint. But as he continued to score, we started seeing him doing it in other areas. And I mean, the other thing, Tim, that, it can't be overlooked is the fact that I think his commitment to being more of a factor in the defensive zone has been incredibly important. And it's shown in some key back checks at certain points in the game, which sometimes are overlooked, but they can be as important as goals scored on the other end.
Well, that's right, Huss. And one of the things it's interesting, and you see this so often, at least I think I do, in younger players who sort of go up the food chain, they go up the ladder of impact players on the game. How to make a difference for your team. For lots of players, it's scoring, but for some players, it's checking. For other players, it's, being a good playmaker. And it's interesting to see these players, when they start to have an impact on the game, to figure out how to have more impact on the game. And that comes with strength and speed and confidence. And so as Kyle's gained some of those things, I think he's realized, he can have even more effect on the game. It's not just scoring. It's, I'm quick enough now to be a good back checker. And I'm smart enough now that I can be a disruptor when I'm playing defense and be part of that 5-man defending unit, as they like to play it in their system all over the ice. Whereas when you're a rookie or a young player, it's almost like you're focused on, you've got to do one thing. Maybe I better score a goal, or, maybe tonight I better not, miss my man or miss a defensive assignment. You get really focused on sort of one thing and you try to work on it and do it better. And then as you get better at those things, you can sort of collect things for your arsenal. And I think Kyle Connor has begun to collect those things, realizing that he can have more of an impact than just beating opposing goalies. So I think, these other things have stemmed from the initial confidence of, hey, I can that. And, as it goes here, and that's how elite players become elite players. I don't, there's rarely an elite player who just comes in and does it all immediately and, is good from the time he's 19 years old till the time he retires. I mean, I can't think of more than maybe one or two examples where that happens. So to me, Kyle Connor is building a really impressive resume. And I can tell you that people around the league, the National Hockey League, are noticing.
Tim, thanks for doing this. I know you got a presser just on the way out. You're watching Oilers Leafs tonight. I would expect a level of urgency from an Edmonton team that's had a couple of rough weeks. Kind of reminds me of conversations we were having about the Jets about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the Oilers are, they're in a funk. They can't score. They're not getting much 5-on-5. They're finding ways to lose. They can't seem to get a lead. Their depth issues have come up again. They've had some injuries. There's all kinds of issues going on here in Edmonton. They're going to get Duncan Keith back tonight, which probably is important. And, we'll see two or three pretty elite players going head to head tonight. Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid. So everyone's looking forward to that here in Edmonton.
Tim, thanks
for sure.
so much for the time. Busy night for everyone working at NHL.com with 13 games on the docket. That's for sure. You be well. If we don't talk to you before Christmas, have a wonderful holiday. Thanks for everything, but we do look forward to a chat soon.
Thanks, Huston. Same back to you, everyone there. Have a great day. There's
Tim Campbell. You can follow him on Twitter at TimNHL and check out all of his work covering the teams in Western Canada for NHL.com. All right, we've got a programming update. I think John Rush is going to join us in 10 minutes or so. Should be a lot of fun to welcome in John. Probably a very different perspective on watching the Grey Cup this year as opposed to participating in 2019. We're definitely looking forward to that. Been wanting to have John on the program for a while, so this should be a heck of a lot of fun. Before we do that, the holidays are here, and it's time for entertaining. And if you're serving beer to your guests, well, I think it's appropriate that with the holiday season, you give them the best local beer around. And that, of course, is the beer from our friends at Little Brown Jug. Now, you're all familiar with the 1919, but are you familiar with all the incredible beers, including the new double in the winter variety pack? You should be. Those are great. They've got 2 of 4 of their top flavors, top brands. You can buy those at your local beer store, or, of course, you can get it down at the tap room on William Avenue. The 1919, I think, is the safest and most popular. It is the iconic. But you also might want to try the Celebratory Brute IPA, which, of course, is the new beer that they put together for the 5th anniversary celebrated this month. And it's a perfect time with the Bombers winning because it is a champagne-like dry, extra dry IPA with flavors and citrus and stone fruit. You can get that as well down at the brewery on William Avenue, and a great spot to pop in. Check out their gift boxes. Check out all the great merchandise they've got there. You can put together. And if you don't want to get down there, get onto the website at littlebrownjug.ca. They'll curate gift boxes for you, or you can make your own, wrap it up, get it looking nice and good, and deliver it wherever you need in town. Free delivery right now. More details over at littlebrownjug.ca. Our friends at Princess Auto continue to be over the moon celebrating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers championship. Of course, Princess Auto, great sponsor of the Bombers, been doing the teammates of the game all season long. And I know probably half the staff will be down there at the stadium tomorrow celebrating the Blue Bombers' great win. Big sponsors of curling as well. Have to give a big congratulations to another Princess Auto team, Chelsea Carey, good friend of the program, along with Colin Hodgson from Mike McEwen's team, are now into the mixed doubles Olympic qualifying, which is happening at Portage. We'll be all over that. We do tons of curling reports for Princess Auto. Princess Auto is the spot where you'll find the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list, or maybe to get what's on your holiday list, is at Princess Auto. You can find out more at princessauto.com, or check out their Facebook page for a great half-hour video of some amazing gift ideas for the person that loves projects in your family. That's all available on the Facebook page for Princess Auto, and you can find out more at princessauto.com. And big night tonight. If you're not going to the game, what better place to go than Boston Pizza? Get all the games, center ice, and all the restaurants. You can get the Jets on, you get the Leafs Oilers on, a ton of games. Obviously, they'll have the Jets on the big screen with the big sound tonight. And while you're there, you can enjoy some incredible package deals, including the wing deal, which is also great for delivery, by the way, or at bostonpizza.com if you're ordering at home. Ice cold schooners, Boston's wings, delicious pizzas, and so much more. Check out the new holiday menu right now at bostonpizza.com, or pop by your local BP right now. or this evening and throughout the holiday season. Big thanks to Boston Pizza for their support. All right, let's get Remis back in here. So Remo, we're going to talk more Bombers with John Rush coming up. I figure that maybe we'll just hold off, wait for John to come in, and then after we finish that portion of the program, we can get back to the Jets. We'll hear from Coach Paul Maurice, and we're going to need a few minutes to get to the Coolbet Lines because, as I mentioned with Tim, we have a massive 13-game slate tonight in the NHL.
A lot of games. That's 14. Sorry, I'm just editing my microphone here. John Rush coming on. I'm excited to talk to John Huss. I mean, he was on the 2019 Grey Cup team. He would probably have some insight on what it's like to win, the celebrations. As far as tonight, I mean, I'm having trouble keeping up with what's going on tonight. We do have one less game now, actually. Carolina and Minnesota was postponed. So it seems like, yeah, it was postponed. Yeah, it seems like.
I just gave out the Wild on the lock shop, and I have it locked in as a parlay. That's been blown up by the damn virus. Jeez.
Yeah, it's gonna be a push now. It's gonna be a push. So I mean, it seems like every team is dealing with stuff. Calgary, Tim had an emergency press conference at Brad Treliving. Boston's got people in protocols. Carolina, I'm trying to think about Matt Barzal. I saw Devon Taves. I mean, a lot of teams. And I think the topic of the Olympics is coming up, especially this potential 3 to 5 week quarantine if you test positive, which sounds pretty terrible, if you ask me. So I think but it's not just NHL. I mean, the Rams are going into some kind of, I don't say lockdown, but some kind of intensive protocols right now. We saw Higbee and Jalen Ramsey out yesterday. The Browns have a number of players. I don't know if they have a tight end on the roster now, actually. I saw Jarvis Landry and a number of players. So, I mean, this is just a thing that every team across North American sports is dealing with. So we'll have to, see what happens here. And, thankfully we do have the Jets game on tonight.
Yeah, well, and of course the Jets have already been through this to a much lower degree with Wheeler and Scheifele being out through the protocols earlier on in the season, and both being, positive and being asymptomatic or being symptomatic and having to miss the 10 days. But Dave Naylor just tweeted out, and this is actually a great point. He said it's looking more and more like the CFL threaded a needle with the timing of the Grey Cup. The fact that they were able to get the playoffs played the way they did, have the Grey Cup go off the way that it did with, so much success despite the increased protocols and some of the events not happening, you do wonder what it would be. Like, say you back this up a couple weeks and, this sort of increase in these case numbers, what that might have done to the event. Bottom line is, the good thing is it didn't. We're going to have a big party tomorrow, although can't have a parade, which is certainly unfortunate. No one will ever forget the parade of 2019 to welcome the Grey Cup back to Winnipeg after 29 years. But I have to say, again, I don't want to get in a bunch of COVID takes. I mean, we've been living with this for a while, but it is concerning right now. And the one thing that we just have to hope is that, going forward, more as this Omicron or whatever it's called, the details that we have, that it's not as severe right now. And bottom line is, if you're vaccinated, you should be okay, and you won't end up in hospital. And maybe that can get some of the few holdouts to come around and continue to hopefully getting us out on the other side. But there's no doubt right now, National Football League, NHL, basically any league that is playing right now, NBA certainly in the middle of it, dealing with a lot. But as Naylor said, CFL maybe threaded the needle. The Grey Cup is in the books. The Grey Cup as a trophy is back in Winnipeg. And we're going to have a fun week coming up here in Winnipeg, and of course on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'm really looking forward to this next conversation. This is the first time we've had this guest on, although you're all quite familiar with his musings on Twitter, and of course being a very popular member of the 2019 Grey Cup champs. For the first time, let's welcome in former Winnipeg Blue Bomber, the one and only John Rush. John, what is up, man? It's great to have you on the program. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I'm super excited to, finally be able to be a part of this, because I've watched it for a while now, and it's great to be here and being able to talk some football. I don't get to talk football as much nowadays, but it's always a good time when I do.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this right off the bat. How much different, and was it even more difficult watching that game as a fan on the weekend than it was as a participant in the historic game that brought the cup back in 2019 as part of the team?
Yeah, you know what? It was a lot more stressful. I'm not gonna lie. It was very stressful to watch that game. And I remember the nerves before the game in 2019, how nervous I was personally, and everything kind of going on. But uh, after that first drive in 2019, I'm like, oh yeah, we're good. This isn't even a competition. Like it's fine. We're fine. Uh, this was a little bit different. This was a little bit, I was stressed, especially when Dane got hurt and Mazzoli got in. They were kind of hot. They were kind of hot at that point. Their defense was on fire. Mazzoli came in and was slinging the ball. I wasn't like worried, but it was a lot more stressful than I remember 2019 being at that point in the game.
Well, and you make a great point. I mean, we've talked about it, but frankly, all season long and all into the Grey Cup. I mean, you and your Bomber teammates in 2019 absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was a beatdown. And in professional football, when you're winning all those one-on-one battles, when you're going hat to hat on the line of scrimmage, and you're doing it for 60 minutes, you're winning that football game 99 times out of 100. I mean, barring some sort of a miracle. How impressed and maybe concerned were you with the way the Ticats stepped up in the trenches in the game on Sunday? Because that was a place where I think myself and most people, at least from Winnipeg, were expecting it's a huge advantage for the Bombers. We saw what happened against Saskatchewan. They're able to get past 5 turnovers, no problem. The Ticats stepped up and really made it a game starting in those battles right on the line.
You know what? 100%. And this is kind of something I always, say when, people are kind of talking about, sports is, they're getting paid too. And that's something that a lot of people kind of forget about is, it's like, as biased as we are to Winnipeg, the Tiger-Cats and the Tiger-Cats D-line and those coaches, they're all getting paid, right? So they're going to come out. They're not just going to roll over, as much as in 2019 they kind of did. That's not really what was going to happen, right? So, and they came out, and for 3 quarters, their D-line was crazy. They were good. They schemed our offense very well, and it wasn't from what I could see. It wasn't so much the fact that it's not like we were getting bullied. It was they schemed it to take advantage of certain areas and certain areas of opportunity that they saw on film. And it was interesting. It was very interesting to see because no other defense pretty much all year had been able to do that. And I think it took them kind of by surprise a little bit there. And they just, the Ticats defense just really didn't have the stamina because you could tell in that 4th quarter and into overtime, it kind of petered out. But in that first, 2nd quarter, I was like, wow, like they look good. And, Jagarrett Davis guy's a baller. The guy is a good football player, right? But it's something to remember is they're getting paid too, right? It's something always people always kind of forget about is they're always like, they're surprised, but I'm like, they get paid to be in that game.
Hey, John, let's talk about the win for a minute. As a guy that played so much on defense and on special teams, this Grey Cup, more than any I can remember in recent history, was, sort of an uphill and a downhill game. We spent a lot of time yesterday talking about O'Shea deciding to, opt out from getting the football and get the wind in the 4th quarter. But for folks that maybe haven't played in those conditions, give people an idea about how much of a problem it is, especially for an offense to be going into that, and the complete turnaround in 180 that we saw in the Bombers' offensive production when they had the win behind them, but also had their backs against the wall down 12 in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because a lot of people don't really understand that, and it's interesting to people have never kicked a football into 70 mile per hour wind before and have it literally just basically go straight up. Most people have never had that experience, and I've been playing football since I was 9 years old. I've played in all the conditions. I've seen all of this before, right? And it's crazy. It's crazy how much the weather has an impact on the game. And this isn't the first time that O'Shea has done something like this before. I played 3 seasons with O'Shea, and there was a couple of games there where it was very windy, and I didn't play a single play during the game because I was on punt and kickoff return, and we elected it to kick it twice. And it's interesting because that's basically like giving up another turnover, right? You're giving the tie catch, you're giving the opponent team an additional possession by, electing to kick twice. So it just really kind of goes, if you're a coach and you're purposely giving the other team an additional possession, and we know how important turnovers are and possessions are, it goes to show you how important and how much of an impact the weather, the wind, and things like that have on the outcome of the game. And like you said, you can see in the fourth quarter, the offensive production we had, the difference, you know what I mean? From where it started with the winds, with the wind not in our favor to the fourth quarter being a huge factor in us driving down the field and ultimately, winning that game.
Was there any doubt in your mind at halftime that when it came time to make the decision of what they were going to do, that Mike O'Shea would say, we'll take the win in the fourth quarter and we'll be fine with kicking off in the third?
I knew when he deferred, he was doing that. That 100% is like O'Shea's, like that's his MO. That's what he does. So I had no doubt in my mind that that's what he was doing from the first, kind of right off the bat. And it kind of shows you the importance of getting up early, though, so that the coach then has options at halftime. You know what I mean? So at halftime, if it's like, hey, it's like 21-0, then you can actually take that, you can take it. You don't really have to worry about the wind as much. You know what I mean? Whereas like if you're in a scenario where it's like, yikes, we need the wind in the fourth, we're going to give them that additional, possession. It makes it, no coach wants to give the opposing team an additional possession, right? That's not like, that's not something a coach wants to do. So that's the importance of kind of getting up early and not waiting to the fourth quarter, right?
No doubt. Hey, a special shout out to Janelle Tarnopolsky. Woot woot, former Pegger here celebrating from North Carolina. Janelle, great to have you with us. Yeah, hit the sub. We'll be talking Bombers back to back for a while here and keeping you up to date on the Jets and all the other fun stuff happening back in your former hometown. John Rush is with us. We're talking about the back-to-back victory in Grey Cup 108 for the Blue Bombers. John is a guy that was a part of a championship team and a championship defense. I'm sure you were impressed all season long with what that defensive unit was doing. I was talking with Ted, and I know Adam Big Hill mentioned it after the game. I don't think there could not be a more appropriate way for this team to win a championship than on a walk-off interception that was touched by 3 different players. Just a comment about that game, but what you've seen from this group all season long, building on what you guys had as a dominant defense in 2019 and being able to finish the job and win a second championship. But specifically, that defense really from start to finish of this season was the standard in the CFL.
Yeah, it's interesting because that I played linebacker my entire career, right? And it was only when I got to the CFL, transitioned me over to fullback, and so I've kind of played it all. I played offense, defense, special teams, and I've been a part of really bad defenses before, and I've been a part of really amazing defenses before, and watching how Richie Hall implements the defense, watching how he coaches the guys, and watching them kind of just take control and do their thing. It is so fun to watch, and it was so fun to watch these guys all season. And I get it. Like defensive football, like this is like the biggest knock on football. Like nobody likes defensive football. It doesn't drive ratings. More points means more people watch, etc. Like I get it. But as a defensive guy, I loved it. Like I loved everything about watching this defense play. They were technically sound. They ran to the football. They beat like the heck out of guys. Like they were crushing people. Like it was just fun to watch these guys do their thing all season long. And like I know a lot of fans were like really upset at the end of the season there when they lost that fourth quarter record for like the least amount of points in the fourth quarter. And I was just like, none of these guys care about that. I can guarantee you 100% I will bet my literal house on it. Not a single, I bet you none of those guys even knew that was a thing until somebody in the media told them about it. I guarantee you that. And all these fans were upset. They're like, they work so hard. They don't care. They work hard to win the Grey Cup. And that's it. And that's what I love so much about that defense is you can see they're doing it for each other. You know, none of those guys care about the stats. None of those guys are like complaining about not getting interceptions or this and that and not getting playing time. They're doing it for each other because they love football and they love to hit people. And you know that is fun football to watch for me. You know what I mean? You can't get that football everywhere, right?
Hey, I got to ask you this, and you'll know, I mean, as a guy that spent so much time contributing to Bomber special teams, I mentioned this yesterday, and I'll say it again, in a field position game, and especially a situation that the Bombers were in, the punt game was so important. How impressed were you with the Bomber punt cover team? I mean, to me, I thought they did, I mean, as good of a job as we've seen at any time this year, eliminating any sort of run backs, especially when you're going against the wind, when, you know, sometimes you're worrying about the penalty, the no yards coming up, and, you know, you don't have the same sort of time to prepare with the hang time on it. How impactful do you think were the coverage teams for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Sunday?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because that's one of the most underrated, you know, least talked about positions.
Always
right?
overlooked.
Always overlooked. But see, and this is the difference is people think it's not important because they watch the NFL. And the NFL, everyone fair catches or on kickoffs, they kick it out the back of the end zone. So special teams in the NFL really isn't a factor as much unless you had a guy like Devin Hester, which we really don't see that often, right? So like in the NFL, it's not a huge thing, but in the CFL, it's a completely different game. And it is massive. It is geared towards special teams and having and like the 5-yard rule, forcing guys to return it, you know, no fair catch and things like that. It has massive implications on game outcomes. And like you said, in a game field position game, like the Grey Cup was with the high winds, it's massive. Not allowing their returners to more than, I think the longest return was on punt was probably 5 or 10 yards, taking 0 no-yard penalties, another massive, you know, thing that people like. These are just things that are overlooked, but that are talked about literally all year. And there's so much preparation that goes into this that you know, because in a massive field goal game or field position game like that, not allowing that guy to have a 15-yard return or not taking that 15-yard no yards penalty. If he's catching that ball on the 55, which he did a couple of times, a 15-yard penalty puts them into field goal range with the win. You know what I mean? That's literally the difference between winning the game and not. And so it's just like the small minutia things like that rarely get talked about. And it was great to see how they covered. They got down there and those were some good returners. It's not like those guys were chumps. Like at one point they put like Tunde Adeleke back there, and that guy runs like a legit laser 4.3. That guy is fast. Like that guy is not easy to catch and nothing. You know what I mean? So it was great to see that, and you know it's like I said, it's one of those things that's often not really talked about in the media, but it's one of those small things that makes really all the difference in a game like that. It's all about, you know, field position strategy and things like that, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, if you know, you know, and I think everyone should know because I mean, it was all phases of the game, and you know, funny. I mean, you mentioned special teams. We talked about kicking all year long. I mean, as the teams beating the hell out of everyone in the league, you know, the kickers had a tough time putting it through, and you knew at some point, if you're going to win a championship, at some point the kicker was going to need to step up, and Sergio Castillo was a great story and a huge part of this game, and many people would argue that he maybe was the most outstanding player. John Rush is with us. John, now your inaugural visit on Winnipeg Sports Talk has produced incredible comments on your luxurious flow, but the ring that you have on right now is quite. Can you just pull that as close up? Everyone wants to get a look at it. Look at that. That is an absolute beauty. Do you wear that every day, or just you know, kind of pull it out every now and then? It's got to be it's got to be a showstopper when you're out at the grocery store or walking the dog.
Yeah, no, I don't pull it out every day. It just sits at my desk until I really need it for special occasions. And I'll be at the Bomber parade on Wednesday, and I'll bring it out for that. But it doesn't. I wish I could bring it out more often, but it's heavy. It weighs my hand down. It makes it very difficult to actually do things. So it doesn't come out as often as I actually want it to.
Well, I've got to ask you this because it is the symbol of victory in professional sports. It is, I mean, one of, if not the most special championship in this city, at least in our lifetimes, because of the wait before that it happened. But I think it also symbolizes what this team, this organization has become. And as a former player and someone that still supports the team, is close to many people on the club, I've got to ask you about the culture that's been created. We hear a lot about it, and the media talk about it, and players talk about it. But for people that are listening, as someone that was with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, kind of going through some lean times leading into the great victory in 2019, what can you tell our listeners about what Mike O'Shea instilled as a leader in this club, really going right up to the top of Wade Miller, but maybe focus in as a player on Mike O'Shea and what he has been able to do to instill a level of expectations, and not just expectations, but belief in one another that we heard over and over. Sometimes people talk a lot about, the culture. They've got a good culture. They need a better one. But it really seems like this one is legit. And heck, the proof's in the pudding. It's resulted in 2 straight championships.
Exactly. And you know, it's always funny to me because I was there in 2017, 2018, 2019 when fans were calling for O'Shea to get fired. And they were loud, and they did it every time we lost. People were calling for O'Shea to get fired. You know, it just speaks to how the culture they built there and the organization they built there. It just really speaks to how well they've done it. And you know, here's the thing. I could talk all day about O'Shea. I love O'Shea, and all the guys do. You know what I mean? It's like I've never heard a single guy that played for O'Shea I didn't like O'Shea. The guy is a leader in every sense of the word. And but here's the thing about the organization. And you know, I'm not from Winnipeg. You know, I'm originally from Niagara Falls. And you know, and I love Winnipeg. I literally bought a house here, and I live here now, and I'm in the community. And convincing 100 guys to move to Winnipeg is not an easy feat. And you know, now that I know what Winnipeg's all about, I love it. You know, I bought a house here, like I said. But for people not from here, it's not an easy thing to do, especially Americans. You know what I mean? And Americans have barely even heard of Canada. Most of them don't even have passports. Half the guys that come up here every year are getting their passports for the very first time. Like, these guys have not heard of Winnipeg. And so to convince these guys to come to Winnipeg, it's not easy. They're like, if I'm going to go to Canada, I want to go to Toronto. You know, that's like the one everyone's heard of. That everyone wants to go to Toronto, right? No one's heard of Winnipeg. And then if you Google Winnipeg, it's not like Winnipeg has the best, you know, news that comes out of here, right? So it's not like an easy feat to do. And it's something that this organization has literally been able to do, is convince guys not to come here, but want to come here. You know, you look at guys like Winston Rose coming back here after being in the NFL, Willie Jefferson, Adam Bighill buying a house here and after being in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, these guys want to stay in this community. These guys want to be a part of this organization and stay here. And it's because of how they build it. And it's because to us, it's more than football. And I speak, like I say us, and I'm not on the team anymore, but you know, when I was, it was always more than football. It was about being a part of the brotherhood. And, you know, like I said, with the defense before, like, those guys didn't care about the record because that didn't matter to them. It was, they wanted to win the Grey Cup for each other. Sure, a personal record or a defense MVP award, that's great. But you know what's greater? Winning a Grey Cup. Like in 2019, it was interesting this year because in 2019, it was kind of like the exact opposite of this year. You know, Ticats were 15-3. They beat us badly both times. They won every single award that year, et cetera, et cetera. And we're like, we don't care. Like, none of this matters to us. We're gonna kick your ass in the Grey Cup. And it was way better. You know what I mean? And that kind of just goes to show you the team that they've built here is they don't care how good you are. You know, they don't care. Like, you could be, I've seen it. You know, I've been in that locker room plenty of times with plenty of very good football players that were amazingly athletic, but they weren't in it for the team. They wanted to be there because they knew they'd have 1,000-yard receiving season. They knew they'd have, they'd be on the best defense in the league, and they wanted those stats, you know, and they got cut for it because they weren't in it for the guys. They weren't in it for each other. And that's why every single person on that team has bought in, and they bought in because Mike O'Shea, like, not demands it, but that's how he leads. You know, he gets buy-in from every single one of the players. And if you don't want to buy in, cool, great. You're not going to play here. You go play somewhere else. There's 8 other teams. Have fun. You know, we don't care. We don't care how good you are. If you're not buying into this program and what we're selling, then, you know, thanks for coming out, but we'll see you later, kind of thing. And it's it cannot be, you know, understated how much of a factor Mike O'Shea had it in creating that. And, you know, and it's interesting to look back in 2017, 2018 to see people call for his head and, you know, they didn't understand, they didn't see the vision. Now they're all, you know, now all these people are on the bandwagon, which is, you know, it's great to see. But
they're finding like which square outside of IG Field is the Osh statue gonna go right now? And to be honest, back-to-back championships. He's the second winningest coach in Blue Bomber history. I mean, Bud Grant has set the standard. He won 4 times in 5 years, then went on to an incredible NFL career. But I think everyone here in Winnipeg is hoping that Osh stays here, continues to move forward, because I think we all agree that, you know, what you and your teammates started in 2019 and really before that, we're now in a glory era right now of Blue Bomber football. And from what you all just said about the buy-in to the organization, to the city of Winnipeg, the connections with the fans, which is as special as anything I've seen before in any sport growing up here. The future's still very bright as long as the key people are intact. And I don't think there's any more important person than Mike O'Shea. John Rush is with us. If you're not already following on Twitter, what the hell are you waiting for? At John Rush 32. John, before we go, just give us a quick update on life. How are you doing? What are you doing now? And everyone wants to know how your dogs are.
Yeah, no, they're, you know, I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm enjoying my body not hurting constantly all the time now, which is always a plus. And, you know, my dogs are great. They're just sleeping in the other room now. I work from home full time now, which is awesome. And it's funny because all these people were like, oh man, your dogs are going to be so happy. Like Bone and Bailey are going to be so happy that you work from home 24/7 now. You're always going to be with them. They did not even react once to me being home. They're just like, okay, dude, whatever. Like they just sleep in the other room. They just like, they go to my bed and sleep in my bed. And I'm like, this is what you guys do all day. Eh?
Hey, you know what? You've been such a great advocate for dogs in particular, but the animal services as well. I mean, while we've got you here for the first time, we've got to quickly mention, I mean, what do people need to know? What are maybe if they're looking to make a charitable donation or get involved with an organization along the lines of some of the things that you're doing? Who are some people in the community that you've worked with that are doing some great things that people should check out? Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great question. And especially right now, into the winter months in Manitoba, as we all know, it's very cold here. So the shelters need a lot of help now because the fact of the matter is if there are these stray dogs outside right now, is they won't survive. They just won't. So shelters right now are inundated with dogs that just won't survive the winter, unfortunately. And so shelters rescues are always looking for more fosters, and really fostering is a great way. And I know a lot of people don't like it because they're like, well, I'm going to fall in love with this dog and want to keep him. And that's okay. That happens. That happened with Bailey. You know what I mean? Like it happens, but
fostering is a great way to get involved. It's a short-term commitment, because here's the thing. If you commit to an animal, and I was tweeting about this the other day, if you buy an animal, if you adopt an animal for Christmas, you're committing to that animal for 15 years. Like, that is the time span you have to think about. It's a 15-year commitment. You know what I mean? It's not, oh, after the holidays when it's not cute anymore, you abandon it. It's like, no, this is a 15-year commitment. So, fostering is a great way to help save animals, because it frees up space in shelters for the shelters to bring in other animals. And it's a great way for you to connect with a dog, to, have a dog in your life, to kind of get that. It's kind of like microdosing dogs. You know what I mean? You're kind of microdosing having a dog by fostering. And it's great. It literally saves lives. And you know what I mean? So, there's so many amazing organizations in Winnipeg. My sweater right here it says the dog father on it. It's from the Manitoba Great Pyrenees Rescue, who we just did that Santa Paws fundraiser for, as well as the Winnipeg Humane Society, Manitoba Underdogs. The list goes on of amazing organizations that we've worked with. Winnipeg Pet Shelter, or Winnipeg Pet Rescue. Sorry, there's a lot of really amazing shelters here, and they have no shortage of animals coming in, especially in the winter months. So if you can, I know the holidays are a tight time for people. I get it. I'm flying home to see my parents, and it's costing me an arm and a leg to get there and house these guys and things. So I get it. But you don't need to throw money at the problem. You can fostering's free, and you actually, the shelters will pay for all the services that the animals need, including the dog food, which is another great reason to do it. You can just donate your time. I work a lot with the Winnipeg Humane Society, where they're just looking for people to go and walk the dogs, to get the dogs exercise, to get the dogs out of their cages, because they need that exercise. They need that socialization, right? And, just something as simple as that. And it can be monumental for a dog to relieve stress, to help it calm down and things like that. And it doesn't cost you any money. You just go sign up as a volunteer, and you can kind of start walking dogs. And really, what other way do you want to spend your time than walking some dogs, right?
No doubt. Hey, John, this was a hell of a lot of fun. I tell you what, I mean, heading into 2022, I know you're going to be involved in a lot of things, helping animals in our community. Never hesitate to drop us a DM. We'll get you back on. Talk about some other fun stuff too, but we'd love to help you out on that. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow night. It should be a heck of a party. All your former teammates back doing it again. You'll be rocking that big ring that you earned in 2019, and it's going to feel like 2019 all over again here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Wednesday night. Thanks for doing this, pal.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I always appreciate talking some football. So anytime you want, I'm here.
Right on. There he is, former Bomber and 2019 Grey Cup champion, John Rush. Hit him up on Twitter and follow him at JohnRush32. Very entertaining dude. It was great to have him on the program for the first time. We've been talking about it for a while. I thought, what a perfect day to do it in the basket, the glory of another championship, talking to him and how much different it must have been watching it as a fan as opposed to being competing in the 2019 Grey Cup. Big thanks to John for doing that. We will get to Coach Paul Maurice in just a moment. But I do want to thank our friends at the Nick and Nicky DQ group for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And man, if you saw on our Instagram or theirs on the weekend, some of the cakes that they did up for the Grey Cup, I want to give a special shout out to our pal Chris, who not only got one for himself, but donated one for us to give away to a lucky winner on last weekend. They were phenomenal. It doesn't matter if it's Grey Cup, if it's sports related, or just a birthday or Christmas. The Nick and Nicky DQ group had those amazingly delicious DQ ice cream cakes, and they'll do it up however you want, customized, personalized, and ready to go at your local Nick and Nicky DQ. You can pick it up at one of 4 locations: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And if you want to order in advance, hit them up on Insta at DQ Manitoba. And while you're there, try the Steakhouse Burger. It is absolutely elite. And our friends at Canadian Club have been so good to us. Shout out to T-Bone, who popped by yesterday to pick up his hoodie that he won in the marble race on Friday. We will be doing another marble race on Friday, so don't worry. But my guy James over at Canadian Club mentioned that they have a pair of prime seats for Alex Ovechkin's return to Winnipeg on Friday night. Friday night game, section 117, I think, row 8, mint seats. And we're going to be giving them away on Thursday. So what you're going to want to do is make sure you're tuned in tomorrow. We won't be doing this one as a marble race because we want to make sure with a great prize like this from Canadian Club, we give everyone a chance to win, including all of our podcast listeners. So on tomorrow's program, we'll let you know a few times how you enter. We're going to do something new through our website, and then we will announce the winner on Thursday's show. So be sure to be with us tomorrow. You'll get the details, and it will be your chance to win a pair of prime seats for the Jets and Capitals, courtesy of Canadian Club, on Friday, and that's on tomorrow's championship celebration edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and of course, Canadian Club, the official spirit of your Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We've got a crazy amount of games tonight. Well, it was 13. Apparently now it's 12, and my Minnesota pick is off the books. But we will get to everything happening at Coolbet before the end of the program. But we sort of bounced around between Bomber celebration, a big game tonight, Jets getting back on the ice against the Buffalo Sabres. We did get an update earlier on Blake Wheeler, as well as the way things are going to look heading into the start of this homestand against the Buffalo Sabres tonight. So let's turn it over and hear a little bit of what Coach Paul Maurice had to say earlier today after the morning skate.
What is the tape showing you about Buffalo's game, especially of late?
Their last five has been really solid, really good. Their last two especially. Against two really powerful offensive teams in the Rangers and Washington. They defend hard, played hard. I think they got off to a really good start this year. And then, things kind of fell off for them. And now they're at a point in their season where they're probably just working on the process more than anything else. And they got that part right. So some of the disappointment maybe of that block of time between now and their start has worn off, and now they're just playing hard hockey.
Paul, we just had Adam in here, and it strikes me he's a guy who for the last few seasons had a really defined role, a really defined line. There's been a lot more fluctuation this year, obviously, and it's changing again now with Blake going down. How do you think Adams handled a rotation of line mates, and why is he a good guy maybe that you can put especially younger players with him and it works well?
Well, he's graduated into being the player that will drive the line. He knows the game. He understands his role very well. So in a pure shutdown role, in a lot of ways, what he's been in the past, that's a game that you can process every night. You know exactly how you're supposed to play, and now that's come off a little bit because with young players in the wings, I haven't run them against the other team's best as much, and we've got Dubois now at center, and I don't want to run those guys in the 3-hole or Scheif in the 3-hole. So his minutes come down kind of because of that. But what we're starting to see, and what we need to continue to see, is they're starting to spend some offensive zone time. We didn't really measure his line by how much. It'd be great if he could hem the other team's best into the offensive zone, but when you're playing against the best, it's not going to happen. But now they're starting to generate time and some chances inside the dots and getting pucks to the net. So I think all three of them that'll play together tonight have more offense in their game. And it's not a lack of effort, it's just repetition in the zone. More time in the zone, more time inside the dots, more time net front. Adam scored 15. You know, he can put the puck in the net. And now he's playing with two younger guys that are trying to find their way to put the puck. We think they both can shoot the puck. So changing their offensive game a little bit has to come in that style that they're going to play. But we really like where they're getting to, where they're starting to get some opportunities.
Yeah, I would think as a coach there's elements of Adam Lowry's game you'd love to rub off on a Jansen Harkins and a Christian Vesalainen. Right.
So I think Vess has spent some time there now, and we've seen that. The first thing they want to do when they come off the fourth line into the top nine is they gotta score. This is my chance to score, and that's a great mindset to have. But if you've also got to play the game, and you can't be cheating the game to do it, or somebody else is gonna get that chance. So there's a balance there for those guys.
Jansen specifically, have you seen a little bit more disruption and maybe chaos creation on the
Yes.
forecheck with his game? And how does he get that to be?
Almost on the back check as much as anything else. On that change of possession from the goal line to the blue line or even to the red line, he's starting to strip more pucks. He's starting to get more engaged. That's just maturity's not the right word. It's an experience thing that you can catch people from behind. There's lots of teams that will delay, run bump backs, that you pressure hard back in from behind. You can strip pucks, and he started to do that and had some good opportunities to play in the offensive zone because of it. So it's reinforcing for him.
Paul, against Arizona, you were coming off, you were ending a real busy schedule. Going into this one, and you don't want to ever discredit a team, but Buffalo is a team that has been struggling to get wins. So from that perspective, your team coming off a 3-day break, if you get the same level of chances in this game that you got against Arizona, do you think the physical and mental sharpness will come into play?
Yeah, I mean, I liked everything about the score, but I thought we had way too many B and C chances that we could have made better had we been net front, had we done more hard things. We had the puck an awful lot. We put pucks to the net. We put up an awful lot, 46 shots in that game, but we more chaos offense in Seattle, especially in the third period and the 3 periods in Van. We need more of that style of game. It's a heavier game to net front.
And I know it's only 1/3 of the way through the schedule, but your team has been far more successful when you've scored first than when you haven't, and against a struggling opponent. Is that one of the keys to tonight's game? Is that good start putting them on their heels initially?
I haven't felt that. So you look, we've got this really kind of dark hole in a 5-game stretch in our schedule. Prior to that, we really liked it, and we got the Carolina game, but I've liked a lot of our game after that. And the first part of that, I would say, is the game that is the Columbus game. But in that Columbus game, we were second in the league for generating points in games that we didn't have the lead at a point. So I guess my answer is I don't feel it on the bench. And there are times, maybe in that stretch there where we weren't scoring, you could feel it a little bit, but I still not too much. There's lots of confidence that we can score goals. And there's not that history. Well, if the other team scores, we just can't come back. I don't feel it in the way we play. Clearly, we've got this little bobble here of games. Scoring first is usually a real nice confidence booster. We came off a stretch where we weren't scoring, but there's lots of confidence in our offensive game.
Just sort of a clarifying question on Blake from yesterday. I assume there's no further update on his timeline today, but is surgery something that's not?
No, this is a rehab situation. He's going to get, I don't even know, second opinions. Enough people have looked at it. They all agree. They have a very good handle on what it is. They'll let the swelling come down for 3 or 4 days and then say, okay. The problem is if you talk to Blake yesterday, he thinks he's ready to play pretty soon, but this is going to be a while, right? So we know that.
In the Moose situation, nothing's changed as far as you won't necessarily have a call-up by late today?
No, unless something happens where we need one, because I think we're very confident that this is a minor issue. There may be no issue down there. Very confident with it, but I'm more than comfortable even if I have to go into this game with 17 skaters, just to be sure, because it's just the risk reward on this. Skating with 17 is not an issue. Bringing a guy in, even if it's just around and you're not 100% sure, you don't want to take that risk.
You could also have Billy too, right? Because he wasn't around the Moose in that stretch after he was sent there, or?
Yeah, except I know I got 7 healthy defensemen, right? That would be I'm short a guy up front if I needed, if that was the case. We're running this tonight.
All right, there's Coach Paul Maurice, 7 o'clock puck drop tonight. Jets and Buffalo Sabres, couple days off of practice, and then back at it Friday to take on the Washington Capitals, the Caps' lone visit of the year to Canada Life Center. And make sure you're with us tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk for a chance to win 2 prime tickets to the game, courtesy of our friends over at Canadian Club. All right, we will get to the Coolbet Lines. We're losing games, folks. We have lost the Minnesota-Carolina game tonight. And Remo, I'm just seeing a tweet from Frank Saravelli in the past half hour. to add some gloom on a difficult day for the NHL, hearing there are a handful of potential COVID-19 players on the Preds waiting for confirmation. Lots happening today. Ryan McLeod is out from Edmonton. Matt Barzal's on the list for the Islanders. Brad Marchand's on the list. Sebastian Aho's quarantining in Vancouver. It is getting very messy, and this just seems like it's an explosion around the league. And of course, leading to our conversation with Tim earlier, major concern right now, Reem, that this is going to not only affect the NHL in the short term, but the potential of finally getting this best on best that we've been waiting 8 years for.
Yeah, and I think if you're a player right now and you're doing you have to do a 3 to 5 week quarantine if you test positive in China, that sounds horrible. I don't think I would commit to that. I know there were athletes at the past Summer Olympics. They got to. Sorry, where were the Olympics in the summer? I forget.
Japan. Yeah,
I thought it was Japan. Okay, they got to Japan, had to quarantine, and spent the whole time in a hotel. That's not fun for anyone. For me personally, I had an issue last year where I had to quarantine. It sucked, and if you're a guy with a family, do you want to risk spending 3 to 5 weeks in a hotel room and maybe not being able to come back home? Is that worth it? I saw, maybe some people think that it would, but Robin Lehner is a guy who's like, look, that's not good for my mental health. I can't put myself in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen. And I wonder if the NHL does that. The best idea I saw was from Thomas Drance from The Athletic. He's like, look, they're all going to be in Vegas for the All-Star game. Just have it in Vegas. Keep them all there. It seems like the most sensible idea I've ever heard.
I mean, I have now started thinking about this. What is the alternative if this doesn't happen and they don't go to China? Is there a way that we could basically just put these teams together in North America and do it over the course of the month of February? I realize there'd be a lot to it, and it's probably unrealistic. Certainly, if they want to make the money off of it, you need television revenue and you need to sell tickets, and probably not all that time. I guess the other question is, say in a week, they said, hey, we can't do this. We're not going to the Olympics. Does that mean there's no hockey in the Olympics? Or then does Hockey Canada go and try and find a bunch of other guys that would actually go and play and represent Canada and try and win a gold medal?
No, they're gonna. It's AHL, NCAA international players. So it would be like last time. The Olympic, assuming backup group. Yeah, assuming all the countries go, they have backup groups. So, it's going to be interesting. We're seeing a lot of teams, as I said. The Rams closing their practice facility. The Browns have 8 players on the list. Seth Jarvis not eligible for the juniors. He's on the list. I saw Islanders prospect Atu Ratti. I don't think he's eligible for their juniors. He's on the list. So it's tough out there right now. And I see a lot of people saying their fantasy roster, they have no players they can play. I know Matt Larkin of the Hockey News, they canceled their fantasy show they were going to do because you don't know who's playing. And for me, I couldn't find healthy players to put in. I don't want to drop guys that I have injured right now. It's tough.
You know what? And it's it's apparently, especially around the Grey Cup. As I said, and check out the Lock Shop if you haven't seen it, didn't check it out beforehand, or get it on your favorite podcast feed. With Dustin Nielsen, of course, Dusty was there calling the radio broadcast for the Grey Cup, and he went out on Friday. They had the awards, and then he popped into Spirit of Edmonton, and then on Saturday, he said Rod Smith did the same thing. Literally stayed in their hotel room all day. Because they were worried about somehow testing positive, and you had to be tested when you got to the facility each and every day. So to miss out calling the game because of that was enough that even on Grey Cup Saturday to leave guys like Rod and Dusty in their hotel room the entire day. All right, we've got some good news, Remis. We can officially revoke our Winnipeg Sports Talk citywide all points bulletin for Willie Jefferson's phone, because the phone has officially been found. Willie has just tweeted, "I found my phone, Winnipeg. Thank you so much. I love you guys." It was a full citywide effort to get Willie's phone, but he has it back, and apparently he's already been live on Instagram. Willie has been dominating social media especially since the team won the Grey Cup, if I do say so.
He's the best here. Let me. I'm actually gonna pull up. I saw he was live like with Adam Bighill in the locker room. So, but I mean, he was looking good coming off the plane, lifting the Grey Cup, and this is why the Grey Cup is like one of the best trophies in sports. So here he is in the locker room. I mean, he brought the belt back.
He's got El Tony Tone's championship belt back.
So
I remember when Tony gave it to him on at the 2019 game, and he was rocking it around, wearing it, and eventually did get it back to Tony, one of the famed members of the Bombers superfan group, who are all out there representing in Hamilton. Shout out to all of them. And now I think Tony said, hey, well, this is what happens when you win the championship. You get to roll around for a bit with the championship belt. So Willie's been rolling with the cup. Willie's been rolling with the belt. Willie's been rolling sometimes without his phone, but luckily he has the phone back. The belt is back. The cup is back in Winnipeg. And tomorrow there is a party scheduled for 6 p.m. at IG Field. Remo, I know we're going to be there. I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, I had to be on the air in studio when the parade happened last year, and it was killing me not being there. And what exactly is going on in this video, by the way?
This is, sorry, for people on YouTube, I just put on Willie Jefferson's live Instagram right now because people were saying that he was at the Bomber store, like working the cash register and hanging out. But I guess now that he found his phone, what's the first thing you do? Go live, and he's in the locker room. And this guy is, I mean, completely jacked. Holy.
Yeah, no shirt, shades on. The shades, I'm pretty sure he only took off to wear in the game. That's a check. How much?
10,000. It looks like 10,400. He just showed off a check.
Oh God, what an absolute classic this guy is. Well, we're gonna look forward. We'll hopefully have some of the guys on the program tomorrow, and then we will also be down there. We'll get a bunch of content. I'm not sure that we'll be going live tomorrow, but it's a good moment to remind you all to follow us on Instagram at Sports Talk WPG, at Twitter, Sports Talk WPG, Facebook too, if you're into that, because we will have some additional content coming out of tomorrow's big celebration down at IG Field. All right, quickly, let's get to the Coolbet Lines, because we've got a ton of games tonight. Boston, last night, if you got on this game, was a nice favorite, about -140. Brad Marchand's out. Vegas now a slight favorite over the Bruins. Panthers, big favorites over Ottawa. Devils, slight underdogs in Philly to take on the Flyers. Devils have won 2 of their last 10. Both of them have been against Philly. Philly will look to end that tonight. I do like the Flyers. It was one of my lock shot picks. Pittsburgh, big favorites against the Habs. Lightning, favorite over the Kings. That game in Florida. The Wings, -118 faves over the Islanders, who have really struggled lately and now don't have Matt Barzal with them. And the Jets, -278 favorites. That's a monster number. But what can we get them if we want to bet them -1.5? Still laying juice, -109. So certainly the bookies think it's going to be a big night for the Winnipeg Jets. As far as player goals, Kyle Connor to score +120. Scheifele and Dubois +160. Ehlers +170. And Andrew Kopp now up to 2-1 playing along with Connor and Scheifele on that top line. Other games tonight, Blue Stars, Avalanche Rangers, Leafs Oilers as the Oilers look to break their losing skid at home. And the Vancouver Canucks looking to go 5 in a row under Bruce. There it is, -130 for the Canucks taking on the Blue Jackets. In the final game, Sharks -143 against the Seattle Kraken. It's back to the drawing board for me, Remo. I had the Wild locked in, and now that game's not even going to be played.
Yeah, wonderful. Of any postponements, I haven't really seen. I had to rejig my whole fantasy lineup because I got a bunch of Calgary guys. Oh, I just realized I didn't take out Markstrom as my goalie. Crap. So, yeah, it seems like it's just touch and go. I mean, if you're playing DraftKings, that's like I don't even know who's playing. I know Zach Hyman is out for Edmonton if we were hoping for a revenge game there against Toronto, but it's just around the league. There's postponements, players, in protocols. Tough situation here, and we'll see how it works moving forward.
We do have a second Tuesday contest that Remis has set up. We've got 9 out of 20 for it. So if you haven't done any of those contests before and you want to get in, DraftKings.com. It's the Winnipeg Sports Talk DK Championship. I will be getting in there. I will do a team in that. I've been sort of negligent ever since I got knocked out of the eliminator pool a couple of weeks ago, Remis. I couldn't even look at my DraftKings account. I was so upset that I was out. But I will make a return tonight. So if you do need an invite, hit up Remis or I on Twitter. We'll make sure you get that, or just search Winnipeg Sports Talk on the leagues and then get in on that contest. It'll run no matter what. That's the nice thing about the 20s, although it sure would be nice if we could just do a 30 or 40, and then if it didn't fill, have it resized. But anyways, that's the way it goes. And if you want to bet at Coolbet, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Great night tonight. I'm looking forward to the game. I'll be heading down there. Actually be jumping on the CJOB post-game show as well, just after 5 o'clock, if you want to check that out. And then tomorrow, we'll have another big show. We'll talk Jets coming out of tonight's game, and we'll hopefully have one or two members of the Grey Cup champs on the show, and then we'll be down there, hopefully see maybe many of you, 6 p.m. tomorrow night at IG Field. Gates open at 5, limited concessions available for what should be an incredible celebration for the back-to-back Grey Cup champions. Once again, thanks to all of our sponsors, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Coolbet Canada, Canadian Club, Boston Pizza, Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Not Auto Corp, Royal Sports, that championship gear coming in soon at 750 Pembina Highway, Manitoba Battery, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, and of course, F Apparel. Big thanks to John Rush, Tim Campbell for joining us, and of course, the Drip Master himself, Ted Wyman. Thanks to Michael Remis. Folks, maybe we'll see you at the game tonight. If not, we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.